Minecraft Legends is the new strategy game published by Mojang Studios but developed by Blackbird Interactive. I've had an absolute blast over the last 12 hours, it gets really intense in moments. However, just like with anything you put a lot of time into, there are all sorts of things I know now that I wish I'd known at the start that could have made me a much better player, and so I figured for those of you just picking the game up for the first time, I would share the 10 things you'll need to know if you want to get ahead of the game, and so that is precisely what's happening here. You can subscribe, by the way, to see more Minecraft Legends content, but I will mention, first of all, the most important thing is definitely which units you decide to go with. I think the easiest thing to do, the thing the game almost encourages you to do, is just summon one type of unit and spam that at the enemy. And ultimately, this will work for all sorts of different battles, but if you want to be much more effective than just summoning 5 types of dudes that you just happen to have, consider actually going with a nice mixture. I think that wood golems are really great against piglins, however, cobblestone golems are really great against structures. On the other hand, mossy golems use a little bit of iron, but will actually heal your existing mobs, so they can keep an army alive for longer. And then there are the 3 super advanced mobs, the creepers, the zombies, and the skeletons. Skeletons are amazing ranged units, especially for PvE. They'll just tear down structures without being attacked back. Zombies are effectively the combination of cobble golems and the wood golems. They can attack stuff and actually take a lot more damage themselves, and creepers are just amazing for taking down structures. The first time I used creepers, I just used 3 of them, and it tore down one structure entirely. If you have coal, you can immediately convert that to explosions, which is something I really like. So make sure to get a decent mixture of mobs. It might be worth even placing down one of each type of spawner and seeing what you need for each situation, because the spawners aren't that horrifically expensive in single player. In multiplayer they kind of are, so don't be too willy-nilly. But ultimately, if you have a ton of redstone or a ton of diamonds, why not use those to create a ton of zombies or a ton of skeletons? You won't regret it, especially given that there's a mob cap and these mobs take up the exact same count towards it, which is why I absolutely love them. So yeah, make a little army of zombies and skeletons and you can't go wrong. Something I definitely got wrong though was choosing the upgrades for my improvements. I mean, when you come back to your main base, you get to pick improvements like being able to pick up different types of ores, or collecting power towers, etc, etc. There are all sorts of different upgrades that you can pick for your base. However, the biggest mistake that you'll make, and the biggest one that I made time and time again, was not realizing just how important upgrading my storage was. I always knew looking at the large flame of creations, getting 10 extra mobs was 100% worth it, but you cannot get 400 prismarine in the early stages of the game. So what do you need to do? You need to look through the upgrades, you press the right stick down and you end up over here, and then you look through the different upgrades that you can pick. At this point I have them all, but just imagine you don't. You would want really, really badly, first of all, to improve your ally storage. You can only get 250 prismarine by default, so until you get a second one of these, you literally cannot afford the large flames of creation. It costs 400, and although it's basically the only thing that costs so much, the large flame of creations is so much more effective than the small flames, not just in terms of, well, this gives you plus 4 flames for 200, this gives you plus 10 for 400, but also in terms of space. You only have so much space you can use, and realistically by the time you've used it all up, you've probably beaten the game. But ultimately, yeah, if you want to actually take match advantage, you're going to need to upgrade your storage. This also applies to multiplayer, it should be said, and so make sure you do that. Speaking of things you want to make sure you do, I wouldn't include unnecessarily spending on all these towers for that, but it'll all make sense at some point in the future, just like how it makes a lot of sense to make forward bases. I don't blame anyone who looks at the game and says to themselves, wow, the safest place to keep a spawner is in your base with all of the other safe things you want to keep. However, if you're trying to use these offensively, whether that's against piglins or against the other player, or in a multiplayer game, then you'll realize that it takes a really long time to lead your guys anywhere. Time that could be spent summoning in more units, or maybe just killing piglins, or maybe killing the other player. Whatever you want to do with that time, you're using it to escort your units from where it's safe to where it's not, but what if you could just move what the definition of safe was? And then you get there and you've got to repeat the entire thing all over again because your guys are getting killed by zombies. Wow, that's monstrous, right? What if there was a better way to do this? Well, there actually is. Make a forward base. This means get somewhat close to whatever you need to be to. How close you want to get and is entirely up to you, and then build a base over there. This can include building a carpenter hut to keep your stuff safe if you really want to. This means you can build some gates and some walls and build a version of a base that that is forward somewhere so that you can summon your guys and immediately from where you're summoning them, send them straight into battle. Look at this right here. I'm literally sending my guys straight from being in existence over to the tower I want them to kill. And so now I'm entirely freed up to kill the zombies that are trying to kill my dudes. And wow, now my structures are going down much easier because I can summon them and send them at the same time. Well, you know, actually, that didn't work out for me. But the idea of the forward base always has, especially in the single player, you just want to be having a base that's close to the enemy. You can even do something kind of fun, which is put your arrow towers within a distance of theirs so that they can shoot each other. It doesn't really work against structures, but it's a great kind of defense. And yeah, I absolutely love it. If I really wanted to be cheeky, I could probably build it almost up here. No, I just can't do that by a few blocks. But still, very handy stuff, and also a very nice little overlook we have of their base, don't you think? Speaking of attacking stuff, by the way, it's really important to regularly retarget your people. I mean, if you get them to just, like, attack some stuff, they'll eventually get close to something and decide to attack it, but then they'll just stand around like idle ducks afterwards. It's one of the most annoying things about this game, in my opinion. It's the way the AI works. They need to be constantly retargeted and told, yes, please attack that. Even if something attacks you first, please attack that. They'll go for, you know, like enemies you don't really care about them attacking. They'll go for, you know, they'll just stand around and do nothing. And basically, you need to be constantly telling them what to do. Look right here, for example. They've just taken down a tower and they're right next to two other structures. They're being hit by arrows, but they're just all going off to do different things where they'll be picked off one by one. Now, I want every single person here to go for this tower because when you focus your energies together, you get much more done than when you split your army up. Sometimes it makes sense to maybe have some arrows be back here, some ranged units to defend your main guys while they do the big damage. However, if you have stone golems in particular, these are especially good against towers, against any unit, or any building I should say. Make sure your stone golems are attacking units you want them to be, and this is something that's very crucial. Give your units targets all the time, and make sure those targets correspond with what they're good at. Creepers are basically good for high-value enemies and targets only, whereas wood golems are basically a good distraction. So send them in just to keep your main unit safe, maybe, while the actual cobblestone golems do the real damage. It kind of goes back to that thing about units, but make sure any unit you do summon is going towards the thing you want. It makes no sense to have a unit that's especially good at buildings and then send them to attack, I don't know, whatever this guy is, the weird guy with fungus on his back. I mean, they're going to try their best and, you know, they might do something, but ultimately they're going to come up short and they're going to get attacked and eventually even die at the hands of your boy. Whereas you can just spend your time harassing him, keeping him away from your people, and what's that? Is he going to die to my blade? I think he just did. Honestly, okay, this is something I wish I'd known. You as a player have this sword ability, but except against the very lowest level enemies, you really don't do very much. Your biggest power in this game is as the resource commander. You can tell allies to go and gather some wood if you want it. You can tell allies to go and gather some stone or some coal or some iron. You tell, you know, the minions what to do, and that is much more effective. In the same amount, like, seriously, if I spend 10 seconds attacking this guy, he might die to that. Let's see, like, okay, I've spent most of 10 seconds. He's not dead yet. I think he's just about... Okay, he died after about 10 seconds, or in those same 10 seconds, I can summon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then those same 10 dudes could go and attack a tower, and then I could summon another 10 dudes to go and attack something else. Your ability to summon units is very limited. There's no faster way to do this. If there was a fast way to do it, it would change the game, but your ability to just sit on a spawner and make people appear out of thin air is your talent, and you should kind of realize it as such. And so yeah, will 20 of these guys take down something like that? Hopefully. I mean, after all I spent on it, you'd really hope so. I don't actually think so. Yeah, they did it. They did it. There we go. And so yeah, pro tip, make sure you realize that as a player, you're basically worthless. You can't even damage structures. Seriously, look at me. I'm attacking this thing as hard as I could. It doesn't take damage from me because I'm not a minion. And there are all sorts of things like this. I know it feels that way of bosses a lot. You couldn't really do this game without the creatures that you're going to summon. So just keep that in mind. You need your golems, you need your creepers, you need your skeletons. Because what else? What are you without them, I tell you? You're nothing. That's what you are. Speaking of being nothing, this is what you'll feel like when you go to play multiplayer after playing solo. Keep in mind that buildings have different resource costs depending on the game mode that you're playing. So the arrow tower, for example, is 150 wood and 150 stone while playing multiplayer. It's a serious investment, and it does actually have a different power level to match that. Seriously, you have to sit here for so long just to afford one of these things. The walls are not so expensive by comparison. Build as many walls as you like. It never really adds up. But in solo, it costs just 35 stone and 35 wood, and also it's much easier to get both resources because the game just gives it to you. You can spam these things in solo. Wait, rather than just me saying that, allow me to show you my campaign world, the one where I've beaten the game. We can't talk about too much more about that right now, but as you can see, I literally built my walls out of arrow towers, and I still have enough resources spare that they're literally both maxed out. Although, one of them seems to be more than maxed out, it's at 2368. I don't understand what's happening there, but I can build more arrow towers, and it will keep me extra safe. Why wouldn't I just do precisely that? These things are so cheap that the bigger limiting factor is the number of building alloys you have, which, by the way, you can upgrade if you're making smart upgrade choices. You'll probably decide to do that, and so it's one I totally recommend. By the way, speaking of the costs of things and how realistically at a certain point, especially in the campaign where you have villager chests, you don't really have to worry about these costs. Also, by the way, do you want to see something fun? I only learned this recently. You can remove walls one by one like this, so you can make yourself a little exit, and then if you want, you can put it back up. This is just a bonus tip, but I think it's really fun that you can remove 2 pieces of wall and then put it back together. Look, that's perfect. That's exactly how it was before, and you can't tell me otherwise. But speaking of resource costs, one of the things you should always be doing, if you look at the number of alloys you have, the blue count in the bottom left, that number should always be as close to 0 as you can possibly have it. Why would you not always be chopping down some trees? These are not trees, apparently. Why would you not always be gathering some stone? Why would you not always be getting some ores? If you go past a big patch of it, why aren't you gathering it? The answer is, you don't really have a great reason to. You need to always be doing this stuff. You see a patch of iron and you've got a free ally, and you have some missing iron, get some. Iron is valuable not just for units, but for protection reasons too. You'll have a situation where you're missing an ore, and you'll only have yourself to blame, so just always chop down any trees you're walking past. Always, if you see a big stone pillar, chop it down, and the way I'd summarize this piece of advice is always be allying. Parkour is really important in Minecraft Legends. As weird as that is to say, the truth is there are so many parts of the game that are basically designed around it. From chests that you'll find in mountain peaks to entire parts of the game that encourage you to climb up high. Look, there are mushrooms up here so that you can get a good vantage point on the rest of the world. There are all sorts of reasons that you want to use parkour, but even without using mushrooms and getting these mega boosts, it's still really important to know precisely how to do it. Let's say, for example, you end up in an enemy base and you're being attacked by arrows. You need to get out of there and you can't jump over the walls. Let's say you can't for some reason. Being able to jump on top of a structure by jumping on the small bits of it and then jumping over the top and then jumping over the walls from there is really, really important if you want to live to fight another day, or maybe to fight more of the same fight on the same day. But being able to use parkour is really important, and just knowing what you can jump on is super useful. This tree right here, even without super jump, you can still climb it by jumping from one place to another place to another place, and so on and so forth. Being able to do decent parkour is something that you probably don't need to know on your first playthrough necessarily, but knowing where mushrooms are and knowing that being up high has real advantages is something that will save you more than once. I know I've been trapped in a place where I had to parkour my way out of it more than a few times, and if you're in that same situation, maybe this is useful. Or maybe, you know, just spam units and do that instead. It's all down to you which way you prefer to do things, but I love parkour. It's really fun, if nothing else. It's a distraction between things, but it will actually help you out, just like parkour in real life would probably help you out when it comes to being edgy in the mid-2000s. Anyway, speaking of things that might help you out in the mid-2000s, my final piece of advice here is a little bit more philosophical, but it relates to something I wish I'd done, which is paced myself with the game. I got really addicted to Minecraft Legends, and I played the entire 10.5-hour campaign in basically 2 sittings. It was arguably unhealthy, but I always love when you get that into a game. It was one of my favorite things because I assumed it would be like regular Minecraft. I assumed it'd be the sort of game that I'd want to play over and over and over and over. You know, I could just play infinitely, like how I've been playing my same Minecraft Minecraft world for 10 years, I figured maybe I'd be at the most OP stage of this in a few months' time and it'd be the most enjoyable thing. However, this game is not one that you can just, play forever. The campaign especially is like kind of it's a limited experience. You hit the end of it and then it's done. There will be monthly batches of new content that you can play for single player, but the bulk of the game and its replayability is meant to be in its multiplayer. So I would say kind of philosophically, don't treat this like a new Minecraft. I mean, it's set in the Minecraft universe and you can use your Minecraft knowledge here about how, wow, did you know diamonds are valuable and redstone is, but stone is less so. You can use that sort of knowledge and it's going to be really useful on that sort of level. And there might even be new campaign expansions in the future, but for now, you have to see the game as being, very much a thing that exists and then you will be done with. And that's okay. It's just something you've got to be 100% prepared for. Because I wasn't. I still haven't discovered some of the things around my campaign, so there is still some reason to play afterwards. But once you've defeated the last boss, it's over. There's no more fun challenges. There's no more of these tactical battles with the piglins. There is a logical endpoint to the campaign, and I wish I'd known that going in, because you can pace yourself much more. You can casually say to yourself, yeah, I'll play with my friend's campaign. Yeah, I'll hop into the multiplayer, play some of that. Especially the weird DLC stuff, the Lost Legends. Have more time to play around with those, because your campaign will be finished and then it'll be over. You can replay it, and I'm very much looking forward to doing so. In fact, I think I'm going to be replaying it as you watch this video live on my channel. Go watch that. But I will say that the replay value is not as high as with Minecraft, or even with Minecraft Dungeons. I feel like multiple campaigns past the second, I would see it being hard for most people to justify, outside of maybe achievement gathering. But yeah, that's just my take on things. Those are the 10 things I wish I'd known. The last one was a bit more subjective, but the other ones are super useful. Oh, by the way, speaking of forward bases, when you're playing single player, you should always be using the cure Neverac to try and get like as far in as you can. I absolutely love just spamming allies like this and just watching them turn the base that's meant to be inhospitable right into something that's wonderful. It's really, really, really cool in my opinion, and if you haven't given it a shot, you should. Just like how it's really cool to pick the right monsters, look how great my zombies are, it's really cool to target the right structures, it's really cool to make yourself a decent defense, it's really cool to know the costs of things and know how that changes, and it's also really cool to be in the desert where there's these fun structures. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this particular video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I will be making quite a bit of Minecraft Legends content over the next few days, and I hope that you enjoy watching it, because I'll see you next time. Goodbye. By the way, there's a biome in the game that is described as something where things might lie in the future. It's called the ocean, and oh, you can apparently just swim into it. It's funny, this reminds me a lot of the Minecraft console edition, Edge of the World. I'm guessing there's going to be a barrier there, right? Oh no, yeah, there is. So as you can see, you can swim all the way out here, and it counts as discovering the world, it looks like. That's fun. Huh. Maybe their significance will be revealed one day. And I'll let you know when it is, in a video on this channel probably. Goodbye.